one or two men in dark clothes buzzed to be let in. The intruders pulled guns, firing 3 shots from a .40 caliber semi-automatic.
I'm curious about after you got shot, because you got shot in the mouth among the 9 shots.
Because my tongue swelled up to the point that it was blocking my breathing passages.
For sure, no rapper can ever be bigger than a gang. And while this may sound laid back, there are plenty of rappers who've crossed paths with the wrong gangs and paid the price. From legends like 50 Cent and Snoop Dogg to up-and-coming artists, some rappers have tried to tangle with the wrong gangs, and it never ended pretty. Take, for instance, this scene of NLMB Cairo being harassed by KTS Dre.
Like you just broke your jaw, little fuck. What you came out turned up?
Damn, fresh. We done, like that, man. Come on, man.
I wanted some niggas,
It's never pretty, guys. Anyways, let's kick off with 50. On May 24th, 2000, 50 Cent experienced a life-altering event in his grandma's neighborhood. He was just outside her place in South Jamaica, Queens, when everything went south. His grandma was busy planting flowers, and 50 was heading to his car to grab something. Just suddenly, he became a victim of a deadly situation. Out of nowhere, a car rolled up, and a guy jumped out of the passenger side. Next thing you know, 50 was shot multiple times, roughly 9 times, with wounds in his hand, arm, hips, legs, chest, and even his face got hit, leaving him struggling for his life. He underwent surgery, and after a series, he pulled through, which shocked everyone.
I'm curious about after you got shot, because you got shot in the mouth among the 9 shots.
Because my tongue swelled up. There's a fragment of a bullet inside my tongue.
Still.
The news spread fast, and people were floored that a rising star like 50 Cent had been the target of such a brutal attack. At first, the reasons were murky, sparking all kinds of rumors. Some thought it was tied to his past in the drug game, while others guessed it was over some personal beef.
I shoot you 9 times? Was it drugs or something?
It was paid to do it.
But eventually, the pieces started coming together. One theory that stood out was that 50 had dissed a notorious kingpin, Kenneth Supreme McGriff, in one of his songs titled Ghetto Quran.
Break it down, illa. Supreme was the businessman and Prince was the remember? He used to push the bulletproof.
For those unfamiliar, McGriff was linked to the infamous Supreme Team, a gang that ran a serious drug operation and caused plenty of chaos in New York. Now, 50 wasn't about to handle things quietly. He didn't take revenge into his own hands, but he did drop a bombshell about who he believed was behind the hit, Daryl Baum, Mike Tyson's close friend. And in a crazy turn of events, just 3 weeks after 50 was attacked, Baum met his doom in a separate gang attack. Jam Master Jay was 50 Cent's mentor, and his survival in the streets then was with a clause.
Did Jam Master Jay really work with 50 to kind of help him structure his raps and everything?
Jam Master Jay taught 50 structure.
But on October 30th, 2002, Jam Master Jay would be shot in the back of the head inside his own studio. Just 2 years after 50's gun attack, his friend Rincon also got hit in the leg, but unlike Jay, he survived. Despite the chaos, no one knew who was behind the hit. The facts were simple but chilling. At least 2 guys entered the studio that night, one holding the door, the other pulling the trigger. Yet, as time passed, no arrests were made, and the case went cold. Now the cops had their own theory about what went down, and it wasn't pretty. They were thinking Jay's past might have caught up to him. When he was younger, Jay almost went broke, and to keep his career alive, got involved in dealing drugs with some major players. So he started selling, moving large amounts to keep the lights on and to avoid losing everything he'd built. It seemed like a desperate move, but unfortunately it might have been the decision that sealed his fate. Jay wasn't acting alone though. He was running with a crew that included Darren Big D Jordan and Ronald Washington. Together they were trying to push a big deal on behalf of a Baltimore distributor known as Uncle, a ruthless figurehead of the Black Family Mafia. Uncle wasn't someone you messed with lightly, but the deal went sideways, leaving Jay and his crew in the hole for $180,000. That alone could have been enough to get Jay killed. But the story gets even darker. It wasn't just the botched deal that might have set things in motion. People started talking, and it became clear that Jay had beef with Darren's son, Carl. They had some shady business dealings, and things got ugly when Jay allegedly cut Carl out of a deal at the last minute. Tensions ran high, and secrets started to come out. Turns out that Carl and Ronald are currently the prime suspects.
Now they actually have 2 suspects that are being charged with it. Ronald Washington and Carl Jordan Jr., who happens to be the godson of Jam Master Jay.
When you mix bad business with alienating your allies in the middle of shady mafia deals, the outcome isn't hard to guess. Sadly, for Jam Master Jay, it all added up to a tragic ending. This rapper lost it all for a particular crime he committed years back, Honeycomb Brazy. Brazy had just gotten out of jail, but by February 2016, things took a dark turn again. Allegedly, he ended up shooting and killing his childhood friend Larius Moore, aka Stank, who was only 22 at the time. The whole thing went down at some apartments where Brazy's girlfriend lived. Stank showed up, wanting to get inside, but his girlfriend wasn't having it and refused to let him in. Stank wasn't one to back down though, and he made a scene, kicking the door down and forcing his way inside. When he finally got in, he found Brazy there, who was supposedly at the apartment to sell some stuff. Things escalated quickly. What started as a heated argument between two friends turned into a full-on physical fight. Unfortunately, the fight didn't stay just fists. Brazy had a gun, and before anyone could stop it, he used it on Stank, leaving his friend dead. Word spread fast on the streets, and people soon connected the dots back to Brazy. The problem was, Stank was well known and well liked in their neighborhood, so Brazy quickly became a target. He racked up a bunch of enemies, including people who used to be his boys. For a while though, Brazy was on the run, trying to stay out of the cops' radar, but they eventually caught up with him, and he was charged with Stank's murder. Somehow, he managed to beat the charge, but getting out of jail didn't mean the end of his problems. There were still scores to settle, and Stank's murder had turned not just random guys on the streets against him, but even his own gang and childhood friends. Once he got out, it didn't take long for things to heat up again. First, he got shot with a bullet hitting him in the head and putting him in a coma for weeks. He made a recovery, but the streets weren't about to let him rest. Just months after bouncing back, Brazy tried to focus more on his rap career, hoping to turn things around. Things seemed to be on the up for a bit until November 2020 rolled around. That month, Brazy went to Montgomery, Alabama to buy a Kobe Bryant jersey from someone. While he was chilling in a car park outside a barbershop with some of his boys, showing off the jersey on Instagram Live, things went sideways. Out of nowhere, shots started firing, and for a few seconds, the recording screen went blank. Fans feared that he might have been hit, but luckily he made it, and no one was hurt. But the message was clear. Brazy still had a target on his back.
I had to buy another one, man.
We need a big man. Whoever the big man stopping for real in the post for real, come get it, man.
Yeah, you gotta be shit like Kobe.
We can't the rebound for real, come get it.
Got it. Dead way.
Brazy didn't take this lightly. He later dropped surveillance footage from the barbershop to show what really went down, and he even went on live to explain how his car got shot up. You'd think he'd be more cautious, but a few months later he was back in the hood when he was hanging out with his people when another gun attack went down. It seemed like whoever was after him wasn't done yet. Then, in February 2021, things took a heartbreaking turn. The tragic news came out that Brazy's grandparents had been shot and offed, and their home had been set on fire while they were still inside.
Oh my God, Lord have mercy.
Also, a witness claimed they heard over 100 gunshots, forcing them to duck for cover.
We heard gunshots and actually saw some bullets go across our head, so we
had to get down.
We had to get down.
How many gunshots did you hear?
I heard over 100 shots.
It was a devastating blow, and it didn't take long for a suspect to emerge. Darren Southall, a major figure tied to the Gulf Cartel. Here's where it gets even crazier. Southall wasn't just some random guy. He was a well-known kingpin accused of running a massive drug operation along the Gulf Coast. But more importantly, he was Stank's uncle, the same Stank that Brazy had allegedly offled back in 2016. That connection put everything into perspective. Big L's is another rapper who lost his life for messing around. He was on the verge of greatness, with connections to industry heavyweights like Jay-Z, and his style had the potential to shake up the entire rap game. But all of that came to a brutal and heartbreaking end on February 15th, 1999. That day, L was gunned down in a drive-by shooting that many believe was set up by his childhood friend Gerard Woodley. The details of his murder are pretty intense. L was shot twice in the chest, and after he fell, Gerard reportedly stood over him and shot him 7 more times in the face. It was an intentional and brutal act, with some saying the excessive violence was meant to ensure there would not be no open casket at his funeral. L's life was cut short on 139th Street in Harlem, a street he had once referred to as the danger zone, which some think was no coincidence. As for why it happened, there are a few theories. One of the most popular is that Big L was offed because of a situation involving his brother Big Lee. Big Lee was locked up at the time for robbery, and it's thought that he had crossed some powerful people while inside. Some say L's emder was a message to Big Lee, a warning that those people weren't to be messed with. Others speculate that L may have been mistaken for his brother, especially since he was wearing Big Lee's chain at the time of the shooting. But that's just one of the stories surrounding his death. Another theory is that L got mixed up in the wrong crowd and crossed the line with some drug dealers. There's talk that he was involved in setting up robberies, where he'd give his crew information about where the money was, only for them to rob it. When word got out about L's involvement, the dealers decided to take him out as payback. Then there's a third narrative, though it's a bit harder to believe. Some people say that Big L actually tried to have Gerard Woodley offed first. This story gained a little traction after rapper Cameron, who knew both L and Woodley, went public with a claim following Woodley's own emder years later. Cameron suggested that the beef between L and Woodley was deeper than anyone knew. Adding fuel to this theory is the fact that Big Lee had allegedly tried to have Woodley offed himself, and there were rumors that Big L had been seen with the hitman Lee hired. If that's true, then L's emder could have been seen as retribution, but there's no concrete proof to back this up. What makes the whole thing even sadder is that no matter which theory we take, Big L was caught up in something way bigger than he should have been. Whether it was street politics, revenge, or a tragic case of mistaken identity, he paid the bulk price. Chicago rapper KTS Dre had a wild history, especially when it came to his beef with NLMB, which only escalated over the years. It all started when KTS Dre and his crew caught some of G Herbo's homies lacking at a McDonald's outlet. Now, KTS Dre had been at odds with NLMB for a minute, and it all went back to the tragic death of Paris Bete, also known as Lil Pez, in March 2008. Pez wasn't even officially KTS, but since he was from their neighborhood and had a lot of love around him, his death hit hard. Sadly, no one was ever arrested for Pez's death, which only fueled the flames. KTS Dre and his brother Von were convinced that NLMB was behind it, and from there, it was full-on war. Dre and Von didn't hesitate to put pressure on NLMB whenever they got the chance. Fast forward to that moment inside McDonald's. NLMB wasn't expecting to run into their rivals, but KTS Dre was ready for it. He ended up catching NLMB Cairo and smacked him up, recording the whole thing like it was just another day. Dre tried to get Cairo to disrespect a fallen NLMB member named Rock, but Cairo wasn't having it. It was a tense situation, and just before things could get crazier, the McDonald's security guard stepped in and made everyone leave. Of course, the beef didn't end there. Cairo later took to Instagram Live, claiming he wasn't scared and addressing the situation for everyone to see.
Hell no.
On what?
I never
On
ran.
what the?
I only seen you one time.
Never ran for me.
I only seen you one time in person.
Dre's street life eventually caught up to him though. He got arrested on a gun charge and had to do a 3-year service behind bars. But that wasn't the end of it. He kept finding himself in and out of jail over the next few years. Even after he was released on bond and put on house arrest, Dre didn't let up. He would hop on Instagram, mocking dead NLMB members, and even making jokes about NLMB Gio's brother, who was offed at a barber shop.
Let me see my barber before I got looking up.
Dre's boldness didn't go unnoticed, but it wasn't long before he got locked up again for violating parole, landing him right back in Cook County Jail. When Dre's fiancé bonded him out for $5,000, it seemed like he was about to get a bit of freedom again. His fiancé and grandmother were waiting for him as he walked out of Cook County Jail, but things took a dark turn quickly. As they were leaving, 2 cars pulled up and multiple gunmen jumped out, spraying bullets everywhere. Dre's grandmother got hit in the knee, and an innocent bystander was grazed in the mouth, but thankfully both survived. Dre, however, wasn't as lucky. He was hit 64 times in both the face and torso, leaving no chance of survival. It was a brutal end to a long-standing beef that had escalated beyond control. Jake Jitt, a rapper out of Jacksonville, was all about repping W and Bully Gang, both of which were tied to Fulio's KTA crew. In mid-2023, Jake, Fulio, and a bunch of their homies pulled a bold move, posing in front of the grave of Royale Devin Smith Jr., aka 23. Now 23 was tight with Youngeen Ace, and this act of disrespect didn't go unnoticed. The story of 23's death goes way back to 2018, and it's one of the most tragic events in Jacksonville's gang history. Back in 2018, 23 was out with Ace and two other homies celebrating his birthday. Even though they knew better than to be out like that, being deep in the streets, they made a crucial mistake that night. As they left the spot, some shooters pulled up on them and unleashed a barrage of bullets. Ace got hit 8 times but somehow survived, though he was the only one to make it out alive. Everyone else, including 23, lost their lives. Ace's ops, including Jake Jitt, didn't waste time clowning him for surviving while his homies didn't. Jake became one of the most vocal in dissing ATK, the crew Ace was part of, constantly throwing shade at them for their losses. But in the streets, nothing goes unanswered forever, and eventually, all that trash talk caught up with Jake. One day, he got caught slipping while riding solo on the highway, and unfortunately, he didn't make it out alive. For this rapper, he was daring, but he found out soon enough.
You feel me? Hey, ass up here on folks now tweaking. Buying some shoes. Y'all see be up here though. Me up here on folks in this building. Shoes. I look like Nooski.
Mubu Crump was in the streets stirring up a lot of trouble, especially when it came to OTF. One day, he went live at the spot where Lil Durk's cousin Nooski was offed and started talking crazy, showing no respect at all. Since he didn't rock with OTF, he was out to make his feelings known. But Crump didn't stop there. Shortly after, he decided to take things even further by going live again, this time at the spot where Lil Durk's manager Chino was offed, and he was just as disrespectful.
You feel me? Hey, ass up here on folks now tweaking. Buying some shoes. Y'all see be up here though. Me up here on folks in this building. Shoes. I look like Nooski. Ass up right. Hey, y'all got that order for Nooski? Chino burger. Yeah. Y'all got it? Hey, right? Oh, thank you.
Crump kept the trolling going, hopping back on live to diss Nooski again, claiming that Nooski had threatened to off him at one point. It was clear he had real hate for OTF, and he wasn't slowing down with the disrespect. But everything changed on May 25th, 2018. Crump was outside a house party chilling when a car rolled by and shots rang out. He got hit twice in the arm and twice in the torso. Even though they rushed him to the hospital, he didn't make it and died from his injuries. This last rapper met his fate the same day he goofed. Raw Giz from the YGs was one of Sevside's well-known ops, and he seemed to always be looking for trouble. He was notorious for going live on Instagram, trying to stir up drama with Sevside members like K-Flock. Eventually, K-Flock got fed up with Raw and claimed he ran into him in public, saying Raw wasn't really about that life. There's even footage of K-Flock trying to spin on Raw during an IG live session.
Nah, you gotta move more back, cuz. What a gang, they not doing nothing.
Not long after, Raw Giz went live again, telling K-Flock to pull up, claiming he never saw him and that he was ready for anything. The back and forth didn't stop there though. Soon after, another video surfaced of some Sevside goons chasing Raw through the streets. They really wanted to catch him. Sadly, they eventually did. Just a few weeks later, while Raw Giz was getting into an Uber, his ops pulled up on him. On July 11th, 2021, Raw Giz was on his way to the studio when two men on scooters rolled up and started shooting. The entire scene was caught on his Uber driver's dash cam, and the footage quickly went viral. What made things even crazier was that just a few hours earlier, a 13-year-old member of the Rollin' 80s Crips named Jerian Elliott had been offed. Raw Giz had allegedly mocked his death on social media, and the payback for that came swiftly. Anyway, that's all for today, guys. Thanks for watching.